Welcome to the Tilted Halo. This is a new podcast, and it's for anybody who's a woman in ministry. You might be a pastor like myself, a bishop, a priest, a rabbi, music minister, elder, children's minister, whatever your title is. You're absolutely in the right place, especially if you're someone who loves your ministry and you're doing it well and you're feeling pressure to sometimes be perfect, and deep down inside, you know you're not. And how in the world to deal with that. And men, you're absolutely welcome here too, because this is about ministry and the same thing can happen to you. So you're all in the right place. Let's get started with the show. Welcome to another episode of the Tilted Halo, and that is me, Pastor Kathleen Panning, and I am here with a very special guest today, someone I met a couple months back at a conference, and she is Aretha Taylor, founder, chair, president, and CEO of New Beginnings Outreach Program for Women. It's a nonprofit organization for women and young girls of abuse, substance use, incarceration, mental and emotional illness, and homelessness. She's also the founder and owner of New Beginnings Life Empowerment LLC, which is a transitional life skills company aiming to develop healthy personal, mental, and emotional transitions. Aretha Taylor also serves as the founder and pastor of Kingdom Faith International Outreach Ministries and Missions, registered in the United States and Jamaica. As a visionary, Red Recognition recipient, author, entrepreneur, and transitional life strategist, Aretha excels as an orator, an international public speaker, a podcaster, a facilitator, a radio host, a pastor, a philanthropist, and a mentor. Her multifaceted career is dedicated to empowering women, men, and young people, fostering personal growth and transformation within her community and globally. Aretha, welcome to the Tilted Halo.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's awesome and wonderful to have you here, Pastor Aretha. And I like to start out by asking my guests, please tell me and tell our audience some of your story, how you got to be who you are and where you are these days.
Well, my story is filled of a lot of trauma from when I was a child, growing up in Brooklyn, New York. Types of trauma that I endured were sexual molestation, abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. I was also homeless for 4 years with my daughter at the time. I got pregnant at 15 years old. And I dropped out of high school at the age of 16 when I was in the 10th grade. And it was mainly to um, support my daughter and to support myself because I didn't have that community, right, to help me. And at the time, the church, no one reached out to me really to see how I was doing, to be that community for me, to support me and to encourage me. So I felt very much alone and abandoned and rejected, especially by the church, right? And I remember after having my daughter, my mom was extremely abusive. She was still very much abusive, and I didn't want to put that strain on her. So I decided I was going to leave, and I left without knowing really or having a plan. And that's how I became homeless for 4 years. And through that, um, I, after being homeless for 4 years, um, found my own apartment after going back to my mom's house for 2 years, right? Um, I didn't want to, but the Lord told me to go back because of all that I was going through. Gone back at the age of 20, and 22 was the first time I had my own apartment. I became successful. I was working at a hotel, and that's where my new beginning, part of my new beginning.
Mm. That's quite a journey. You've experienced and seen some of the more unfortunate and darker sides of the life of many people. What kinds of insights has that given you for yourself and for other people?
Strength. That was a time of my life where I actually thought it was my life was over. But the negative words that were spoken to me, they empowered me instead.
Hmm.
The words that were told to me that I am nothing, I would be nothing, I will always be nothing. Those your words empowered me. Even after I dropped out of high school, I told myself that I did not want to hang out with high school dropouts. I want to be around high school dropouts because I felt what they do for me. I get to be with people who were strengthened, who were empowered, who were educated and older than I was. So that's what I did. I started um, hanging out, befriending people that were older
Mhm.
than I was, smarter than I was, that were in college, that were educated, and that had resources. So I taught myself how to read, how to
Uh-huh.
spell, how to speak. And
Mhm.
this was I trained those literally
Mhm.
is always to no matter what, you must first believe, and it sounds like a little cliche, but you have to first believe you can do it. And even though everyone else around you is telling you it's impossible, it can't happen, it's not going to happen. And all the negative words that were spoken in your life because power is in our mouth.
Mhm.
Speak can either bring death or life. And so I felt at the time that my life was over. But because of the people that God had placed me around at that time, they were so self sufficient and they were so empowered and they
Mhm.
believed in themselves and they loved themselves. That was imparted into me at a young age as a teenager.
Wow.
Environment has a lot to do with how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. The the importance that shares and shows us of having people around us
Yeah.
who have a different perspective, number 1, and it's a positive one,
Yeah.
that, something different is possible,
Absolutely.
that it's there for them, so that means maybe, just maybe, it's there for you too. And, um, and I'm not quite clear on this, but did they help you to feel more empowered, and help you develop that sense within yourself, the more positive view? Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I had a low self-esteem.
Mhm.
I
How
didn't
did they do that? What were some of the things they did?
they stood in the mirror and they would dance to music and they were blow kisses at themselves. They would be dancing in the mirror and telling themselves how beautiful they are. And I
Wow.
remember one of the young ladies was doing that with my daughter. She had my daughter at the age of 3, standing
Mm.
with her and dancing. And she was saying, Carissa, tell yourself you're beautiful. Tell yourself you're sexy. And me not knowing better, I said, don't tell her that. And then she looked at me and she says, but she is. And she needs to know that. And she needs to believe that. And so do you about yourself.
Mhm.
That got me because I never had that. I was never told that. And
Mhm.
never told nor taught that I could do that, that I could tell myself these things. But when she said this, something in me just registered, just changed
Wow.
because I've
Yeah.
been in me to tell that to my daughter, to raise my daughter in that way.
Mhm.
In that environment, it did that for the both of us. It was teaching
Yeah.
me to love Aretha.
Mhm.
Mm.
Today, there are many people who talk about affirmations and positive affirmations. And obviously, that was a very positive affirmation
Yeah.
for you, but it was also to, as I understand it, a gift of love to you,
Right.
to somebody told you you were lovable
Hmm.
and that you could experience that love.
Right.
And to share that with your daughter as well, and for her to know that she was loved, how powerful that is for us to know when we are loved and um, to receive that.
Yes. Extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
She was surrounded by love. She was
Mhm.
surrounded by the friends, the acquaintances that I had in my life at that time. They
Mhm.
loved on her, and they loved, regardless of what we were going through at the time. So she understood love from a very small age because I wanted that for her. I wanted to impart that in her.
Mhm.
I felt that that was extremely important and it was needed for her and for myself, because I didn't grow up in that environment to love me. And I didn't know what it was like to have friends, to love friends or friends to love me and to say, I love you. I thought it
Mhm.
strange. So at
Mhm.
that age, when my friend at that time, in our late teens, when she said to me, I love you, Aretha, I was like, what in the world? I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to, got accustomed to it. I started getting accustomed to say, I love you, and knew that there wasn't anything wrong with that. That was a great and wonderful gift to have
Mhm.
that feeling
Mhm.
and demonstration of love.
Yeah, the words are so important, and so many of us and grow up in where those words are not spoken. Um, and actions are very powerful too, but sometimes we just really need to hear those words.
Mhm.
And
I love saying it, and I love saying it, and I love hearing it from me.
mhm, yeah, it's you you described that moment when things started. It seems like that moment was when things started to shift for you in many ways.
Yeah.
To hear somebody say, you are loved and you are lovable, and worth being loved, in a very healthy, positive way. Sometimes we use those words in some very unhealthy ways, and it becomes oppressive. It's not really the kind of love that's described in scripture. It's not really um, a gracious love. It's a,
It's also a
well,
form of manipulation, yeah. Mhm.
yeah. Um, so to have that freedom of real love, um, yeah, that's it. It is. I hear in you the freedom that that brought to you.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? When I thought about it, now I can think about it in regards to my mom. My mom died when she was 92 years old. And, during those eras, those days, during that time, being raised in Jamaica because she was a Caribbean, right? They
Mhm.
that they still don't. We're not affectionate people. The culture, not affectionate. Don't hug, don't,
Mhm.
and I had to give her grace and I had to forgive her for that because she too was hurting. So he,
Mhm.
a hurting woman, raising with children. And so
Mhm.
raised in a hurt environment. We're being raised coming from a hurt place because
Mhm.
wasn't healed herself, right? She
Right.
was filled with a lot of hurt, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment and bitterness also toward herself or the decisions that she made in her life, for the things that happened to her, for the trauma that happened to her. So in time,
Mhm.
she turned around and she raised 8 children on her own,
Wow.
coming from a hurtful
Mhm.
place of just fear, just fearful and traumatic, right? So
Mhm.
that was imparted in us. So after me getting to know my mom, right? I went to live with her when I was about 45 years old. Not
Mhm.
wanted to, not because by choice, but Hurricane Sandy. I was forced to leave New York
Ah,
to live with her in Florida. And that's when I got to know her. It was not easy because my mom was bipolar and she was
mhm,
all a narcissist.
ah,
That whole dynamic, it was very unhealthy. But
mhm,
I felt led while staying with her to sit with her from time to time and just talk with my mom, have conversations with her, like take her back to when she was a child and she was in her teens. And
mhm,
I learned so much about my mom. And sometimes she'd be crying and telling her stories. But
mhm,
I realized this was her therapy. She never had the opportunity to really sit with anyone and speak
mm.
about her trauma. And my mom talked about a time when she was raped by three men,
Wow.
age. She never talked about it. So she's
Wow.
carrying that guilt and shame
Uh-huh.
for years because you're not supposed to talk about these things, right? Um, it happens to so many of us. So in
Yeah.
with her, in learning her, in talking to the woman, the child, the young,
Mhm.
not the mother, because sometimes we forget our parents. They were boys and girls before they became parents, right?
Right.
I was speaking to the woman, and she had a lot that she was carrying. So I got to
Mhm.
know her in a different way.
Yeah. Uh, it, it reminds me of how in scripture we talk about, the sins of one generation are passed on and from generation to generation because it's not resolved
So,
and we don't forgive ourselves and carry that then on to another generation. And that chain gets broken of passing it on when we hear the message of love and grace and are able to forgive ourselves and like you then forgive your mother too. And you know i I don't know if you can say something about the amount of healing that brought to you and to also to your mother as she was able to share some of that.
she didn't say it, but I know she had a lot of healing going on with her. She did a lot of crying.
Mm,
She was a very emotional person, anyways, but in talking with her and the tears would flow, tears speak volumes. And even though she didn't say much, like, forgive me, I'm sorry,
mhm,
her tears did. Because I knew that she felt she also disappointed us in ways,
mhm.
raising her because she didn't know any better.
Yeah.
She did what she could at that time. She wasn't
Mhm,
given any tools. Like today, what we have, what we're privy to, right? What we're
mhm,
exposed to. They weren't exposed to these things. Like she didn't have a mom to teach her and to raise her and to tell her
wow,
for that.
mhm,
She grew up on her own. Her mom died when she was like maybe about 4 years old.
wow.
Oh, left her dad when she was a teen and late in her late teen. So she
Mm,
didn't have anyone to teach her. She was learning as she was going, right? And our culture, we're very aggressive people. We say the worst things that comes out of our mouths because we think that's a form of therapy, right?
mhm, mhm,
Instead of saying, well, daughter or son, let's see how we can do this better, instead of encouraging us, they'll call us names like, that was stupid of you, you're stupid, or you're dumb, or you're an idiot, and thinking that's helping, but that does so much to a child esteem, and
mhm,
see themselves. And so I am still learning and healing because a few months ago, in sitting down and praying and meditating and talking with God, I remembered that I said some pretty awful things, not to her face, but behind her back in anger,
mhm,
anger. called her names out of anger because I was so hurt by the things that she was saying about me and to me. And now I also took on the trauma of my siblings, right? This is
Yeah.
what happens because I'm the youngest of 8. So I also
Oh, wow.
bear trauma. So I had to now ask God to forgive me for all the things I said about my mom that was negative and hurtful, even though I did not say them to her, but I said them out loud to him. And in asking for forgiveness, something happened within me. There was a love that formed in my heart toward my mom that I'd never felt before for her here on earth. Never felt.
Mm.
And I in speaking about her now today, I'm speaking about my mom from a different place,
Mhm.
place of healing, a place of compassion, place
Mhm.
of empathy and love and honor. Because even though she was abusive, I still learned a lot from her.
Mm.
I her strength. That woman had so much strength in her faith as well, right?
Wow.
And her strength as far as how she raised us and
Yeah.
she was just very strong in what she believed in and in what she also imparted in us. So
Mm.
in that regard, I honor her for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I think it's such a blessing when we can see not only the the flaws, if you wish, the things that weren't so good in other people, but also see the positives, the strengths, the gifts that we receive from them in spite of,
In spite of.
in spite of, and in the midst of all of the rest of it. And too often it seems like when we, especially in our culture these days, we see something that we might see as negative about somebody, we just kind of write that person off.
Her.
And, then everything about the person becomes negative. And, that's not really helpful. Um, yes, there are some people we need to be very careful of who might be dangerous, but the majority of people know, the majority of people are, kind of like the rest of us. We got some faults and we got some strengths and good parts. And to just write somebody off because we disagree with them on something or they've said something or done something that we may indeed find very hurtful,
Mhm.
but there may still be some gifts there that they give us anyway.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Mm.
Is that kind of what you help the people who you work with to work through and to um, come to a different place in their life?
Yeah. Yes. If I hadn't gone through what I went through in my life, there's no way that I can be to the women and the men and the youth, um,
Mm.
to them the way they need me to be to them. Because I understand pain. I see pain. I hear pain. I feel
Hmm.
pain. And I feel these people's pain. And I want to be to them that
Right.
church wasn't to me, right? I want to be to them that the system was not to me
Mhm.
because the system also failed me when I went to seek help.
Mhm.
I want to be that mentor that I never had. I want to be the pastor that I never had either at that time in my life.
Yeah.
I want to be to them that friend who told me, Aretha, you are someone, you are beautiful. I want to be that. So when I am with my clients or speaking of my clients or trying to do what I do for them on a daily basis or meet with other organizations and agents, when I'm speaking with individuals, especially from other organizations and agencies, and how we can partner together to help the community. If I am not hearing what I'm listening for, I don't want to partner with them
Hmm.
because many of these organizations and churches or individuals, they're in it for the money. They're in it for their personal gain. That isn't why I'm doing it.
Yeah. And
I'm
unfortunately, as you said, some of the churches are in it for the money too.
but
Yeah.
it's very unfortunate. So if I am not, I'm listening keenly on what they're saying. And if
Mhm.
I'm not hearing love, then no, I'm not. Because I care about these people. I care about the
Mhm.
women who are incarcerated. I care about them when they come home and what we can do for them, how we can help them to not go back in prison. What can we do for them? I care
Mhm.
about the women who are going through transitions. I care about the women of domestic violence because I come from a home of domestic violence. I
Mhm.
care about the young people. I want to hear from them, how we can help them. How can we, as leaders, as adults, as elders, as the church, as the community, partner and help them? What can we do to make it just a little easier on you and what you're going through? Let's just,
Is it,
mhm.
excuse me, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead.
I was going to ask, is there any one major theme that you keep hearing over and over from these people of what they need and what they are really hungry for?
Trust,
Mm, trust.
trust. Because if they can't trust you, then they're not coming to you. They're not going to open up to you. They need trust and stability. Not only the youth, but even the older people, the young men, the women, they need trust. How do I know you're going to be there for me? So they need to see consistency from us,
Right.
right?
And that, yeah, trust is built over time. It's not something that happens once or twice.
So
And yeah, that's, it's the long game. It's not a short term thing.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Trust is extremely important. They
Yeah.
know that you're showing up for them. Even if it's one person, show up for that one person. I just wrote a blog a couple of days ago. I don't know if you saw it, but I remember when I was teaching Sunday school for 10 months, I was speaking to an entire room that was empty. I
Oh, wow.
empty chairs for 10 months straight, but I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And I do believe, I looking back on it now, that was a test that God
Mhm.
was testing me to see how faithful are you in this. And
Yeah.
one point I got frustrated with the people because I'm thinking they know Sunday school starts at 10 o'clock and ends at 11, but they will just stroll in there 5 minutes to 11 and they want to drag it out. And I'm like, no, we can't do this. It's from 10 to 11. I'm wrapping up. And I would be talking to empty chairs until one day I sat down. I said, God, do you mean to tell me that I'm gonna be here talking to these empty chairs week after week after week? And I one lady, she knocked on the door and she's peeking through the windows and she knocked on the door and I told her to come in, but she came in to see one of the other elders. And I told her I wasn't there yet. So as she was walking away, she turned around and she looked at me and she said, Minister, the Lord said to tell you, you're not here alone. All of these chairs are filled with angels. You're teaching the angels.
Wow.
And I sat there in awe,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
no matter what, we'll show up, even if it's for one person, because we can be the answer to someone's prayer.
Wow. Yeah. And one person is just as valuable as 50 or 100, you know,
Absolutely.
each one. Scripture talks about how God loves even one sparrow,
Yeah.
and or crow, or whatever the creature is, one ant, the little whatever. Oh, I mean, we're far more precious to God than that,
Mm.
and each person is, and we so easily forget that. We so easily forget that. So, how can people get in touch with you, Aretha?
My website, www.n as in Nancy, B as in boy, life.org. That's
Mm.
www.nblife.org.
Fantastic. So I know that I mean, I feel like this conversation could go on a lot longer. And hopefully we'll do a part 2 at some point, and see where else this will go. But just so much thank you for being here and sharing your story. And it's a reminder to all of us about the value of every single person. We cannot write anybody off. No matter what they may have done in the past. The past is not the present, and it's not the future.
Mm.
And um each and every one of us is a gift from God.
Yeah.
And there's love and grace there from God for everyone. And we are called to be the agents of that many times, sometimes in places and ways that we don't really realize. And, your experiences of painful past, you have turned that into a gift that you use to bring love and grace to others. And that is truly a blessing. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I appreciate it.
So you're very, very welcome. And I invite everybody to come back for another episode of The Tilted Halo, but most of all, follow and see what Aretha is doing, and see how you can be maybe even a little part of what she's doing, or at least take some of the lessons from what she does into your life. So until next time, as my voice gets all froggy right here, God's peace and blessings to each and every one of you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. You have been listening to Tilted Halo with me, Kathleen Panning. What did you think about this episode? I'd really like to hear from you. Leave me some comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode. And catch another upcoming episode for more conversation on ministry, life, mindset, and a whole lot more. Go to www.tiltedhalohelp.com, where I've got a resource guide and other resources waiting for you. And be sure to say hi to me, Kathleen Panning, on LinkedIn. See you on the next episode.